Okay, so in this video we will talk about eye strain issues when reading digitally. So when you are reading ebooks on your digital devices, your electronic devices, and we will talk about them from worst to least. So here on my table I have a color e-reader from Bigme, the B751C, and that has a flat display, not sunken, and it also has e-ink, but it uses Kaleido 3 to have some matte colors when reading. And in the middle here we have a Kindle Basic, and it has a sunken display, as you see here, not flat at the edges, as you see. So it's a sunken display, and it's a real e-reader that uses e-ink. And on the right here we have an iPhone that I have mounted a matte display from Mothka. I have a video on when I did that, and by the way, I'm really happy with this. This has changed everything for me, and it has a matte screen protector on it to remove all the issues when reading digitally. So by starting with the worst issue for digital reading for eye strain issues is reflections. Reflections causes eye to refocus unconsciously, especially if the reflected things are moving. And this can cause severe headaches and migraines. And it's caused by shiny screen, and worse if things behind you are brightly lit too. So here, for example, we have a color e-reader, as I said, from Bigme, and if we start it up, you see that you have quite much glare and also reflections. And that is because it has a glass layer on top of the color layer, and it uses e-ink, so it's quite good for that. But if we, for example, open a book on this, and by the way, I should change the color theme to daylight, like so. A color e-reader need to have some front light on all the time because they are much darker than real e-ink. I would say normal e-ink instead, black and white e-ink, because color e-ink is also real e-ink. But you know what I mean? It needs to have some front light on because it's so much darker. So here now we see that it has reflections and glare and so on. Even if it's an e-ink display, we have some problems with glare and reflections. And that is not good for your eyes when reading digitally. So compared to a real book, you get a lot of glare and reflections when reading on this. And if we compare that to a e-reader, a normal black and white e-reader that has a sunken display, you still has quite much glare and maybe some reflections too. Not so much reflections, but a lot of glare. If we start this book and we turn off all the front light on this, because you don't need front light on a black and white e-ink reader, if you have more and enough light in the room where you are reading, for example outside in direct sunlight. But you see here, still you have quite much glare, even if it's a black and white e-ink with a sunken display. But reflections are not so much, because that is because this has a sunken display. So you don't get so much reflections, much glare, but not so much reflections. So this is a bit better than this with a flat surface display and also color e-reader when reading, because this makes you not have the possibility to get migraines and headaches as easily as on with this one. But both these uses ink, so they are perfectly fine when reading still, but you have some issues with glare and reflections. So, I should have this on probably, like so. So here we have the color e-reader, the color e-ink e-reader, and this is the black and white e-reader. So now we go into my new iPhone with a matte display, and this has changed everything. You know, iPhones and other smartphones use as an LCD, OLED or mini LED or whatever display that transmits the light the other way around, so it has a backlit display up in your face, if you know what I mean, compared to e-ink that doesn't need any front or backlight. Even you can read without any light on whatsoever. But by having this matte screen protector mounted, you see I have almost no glare or reflections. The only where you see glare and reflection is at the edges, around the display, because there I don't have any screen protector. So this matte screen protector from Mothka removes all your issues when it comes to glare and reflections when reading. It's amazing, really. It's almost magic. I cannot highly recommend this enough, actually. If you prefer reading on your iPhone or iPad, you can very easily mount a matte screen protector that removes the biggest issue when reading digitally, glare and reflections. So for eye strain issues that you get for glare and reflections, this matte screen protector beats both the colored e-reader and the black and white e-reader when it comes to glare and reflections, as you can see. So great. I'm in love with this matte screen protector, actually. It has changed so much for me when reading digitally, reading eBooks, EPUB books, for example. I mean, this is amazing. As you see there, you have glare and reflections at this notch up the top, but nothing on the display itself. Nothing. So this is magic, really. Really magic. That was the worst issue for reading digitally, glare and reflections. Another issue is that you have the display too bright when reading. For example, inside, when you're inside, at the evening, maybe it will be a bit dark outside and so on, then you will have too much light when reading. On the display itself, I mean. So, for example, as I said, this is a color e-reader using Kaleido 3. The display is normally much darker than normal black and white e-ink. So let's say if I turn all light off, you see it's a much darker than if I have this black and white e-ink e-reader. You see that this display is darker than this without light. So when you are using this inside, you need to have it lighter, because you don't have as much light as is in this studio. When reading, you don't need so much, you never have so much light inside at home than you have in a studio like this. So you need to have the light on. So let's say daylight here, you see it raises it almost maximum light. We can do this by checking my custom. Maybe you need to have max like this on this when reading. It doesn't look so bright here in the studio, but if you have it like this, when it's darker in the room, I can't show you that because it's daylight here. So even if I turn all the lights off in the studio, I can show you totally darkness, but that will hurt your eyes when reading, because if you have it too bright on the display when reading, it causes headaches and migraines too. So you need to lower the brightness on the display. And as I said, on a black and white e-reader and also with a sunken display, you can turn light on. You can maximum here if you want. You can do it very bright. I think this is max. And this is not so bright when you are sitting here in the studio, but as I said, in complete darkness or in the evening, it will be very, very bright. So this is much better than it is on a smartphone or a tablet that uses LCD, OLED or mini LED or whatever, because this uses a front light that are from the top and lights down on the display, the text itself. Instead of on an LCD, it's from that way up in your eyes. So an e-ink e-reader, also the color e-reader, has a front light that brings the light down on the display instead of up in your eyes. So much better, but still, if you read like this at home in the evening when it's dark, this will hurt your eyes and it's not so pleasant to read like this. So you need to have either a sensor that lowers the brightness for you automatically when reading, or you have to do it manually as on the Kindle Basic every time to adjust the light so it's exactly right for you. But light is not good for your eyes when reading, because it hurts your eyes and you get eyes strain. On this iPhone, you can have a feature called reduce white point. So when I'm reading at night on this iPhone, I first uses the black theme. So I get black background on with white text when reading. You see, so beautiful this is with a matte display. You know, if you use a normal display, LCD display with a lot of fingerprints and whatsoever, you don't get fingerprints with this screen protector from Mothka, and you have a black theme, the dark theme or night mode or what it's called on your phone, then you get a lot of glare and reflections. You see yourself in the display when holding it like this. But with this matte screen protected, you don't. But what I should show you now is that in the evening or in bed in complete darkness when reading before go to sleep, for example, I have set a feature here called reduce white point. So if I click on that, you see the display gets a lot darker. If I turn it off again, you see it's normal now. So if I turn that on, it gets a lot darker. So now when reading like this in bed at night, it doesn't hurt my eyes. I don't get eye strain because the text, the whiteness of the text, because the display is black whatsoever, the text is white. And reduce white point makes this text doesn't shine up in your eyes anymore. It removes a lot of the white point of the text, so it gets more default, more diffused, if you know what I mean, but still sharp when reading. So you see here, I have reduced a lot of the white point of the text, and you can still read this beautifully fine in bed or in the evening when it's dark inside. So on an iPhone, you can do this also on an Android phone or tablet. It has some features for that. more dimming, for example, I think it's called on Samsung devices. But on iPhone it calls reduce white point. I have videos on my channel on how to do those settings, but I will also do a new video soon with how to do all these settings I'm talking about on my channel. But as you see here, by doing that on my iPhone with a matte screen protector and reduce white point, the next biggest and worst issue with eye strain is not a big deal either when reading on a smartphone or a tablet, if you can have this reduce white point feature. It's quite amazing, really. So if you compare reading on this Kindle with a white background and black text, yes, I know some Kindles and with co-reader you can have a dark mode that reverts the colors, but I don't like that on e-ink because the black will always be grayish and not so nice to look at. But the text will also be white on a grayish background. You don't get any black color anymore. With that, you can't use the dark mode as good as you can on the iPhone here. So you normally read in bed in complete darkness with a white background with black text. And by doing that, you need to lower the brightness as much as you can when it's dark in the room you're reading, but still your eyes are hurting a bit when reading, because even if it's front light that lights down on the display instead of up, you have some light going into the room and your eyes are hurting because it's too bright, even with an e-ink e-reader when reading in complete darkness with a white background and black text. But it's much better, of course, because it's e-ink and a front light lights down on the display instead. But as I said, with black dark mode on the iPhone with a matte screen protector without glare and reflections, and also with reduced white point, you get excellent reading user experience even in complete darkness. Another issue for eye strain is if you have a bright light near the front of the screen. So if you're reading on an e-ink e-reader like this and you have a window behind you, in front of you, I mean, if you have a window in front of you with the daylight coming in and you're reading, you can't not see the text as good and so on, because it's so light from behind the e-reader, if you know what I mean. That is not good either for eye strain, but that doesn't mean there is no difference between these e-readers or iPhone and iPad or a smartphone from Android and so on. It's the same on all devices, if you know what I mean. So that is an issue that you need to correctly position you when reading. You should not have a light source behind the e-reader itself, a window, a lamp or whatever, the sun or whatever. So you should not have that when reading. Another is too small print, too small text when reading. It's much better to raise up the font to a large text when reading, because that is much better for your eyes when reading. So if you get a lot of eye strain when reading on an e-reader or on your phone or a tablet, try to raise up the size of the text to larger. That will be much better when reading. You see, the iPhone is a bit more narrow than this Kindle Basic, as you see. It's narrower. So when I am reading on this, I have to don't have as large text as I can have on the Kindle Basic, but I still have so large that I think is nice to read with. You see, I don't have so many words on every line, but I think this is perfectly fine for reading. I don't get eye strain for this font size when reading, if you know what I mean. So this is the perfect size for reading on this iPhone and my eyes. But if you have more eye strain than me, maybe you need to raise the size. We can try to do one more like this. Not so bad this either. Maybe I can read a book like this too. It doesn't I don't think this is wrong to have this size of text. It's perfectly fine for me too to read, actually. But I have been used to have this size when reading on the iPhone. But too small print, too small font is not good for your eyes when reading. You get eye strain by that. Another thing with too small print is that it reduces your reading speed. You have to correct the reading speed because you have a smaller text when reading. Then you have to concentrate more to read the text. And so you not only get more eye strain with small print, small text, you also need to concentrate more and get tired by that. And you also get less speed when reading. The last issue for eye strain when reading digitally is blue light. And on e-readers, they remove blue light quite good. You don't have much problem with blue light whatsoever. You can even raise up this to be more yellowish like this. Now I don't have any blue light whatsoever on this e-reader. And you can do the same on any e-reader actually that uses e-ink. You can do the same here. Now I have not so much light, but I can do that by raising this side on a Kindle that has glow light. The Kindle Basic doesn't have glow light, so you need to have an e-reader like the Kobo Clara for example, Kobo Libra, or the Kindle Paperwhite that you can have glow light, so it also removes the blue light. This Kindle Basic has some blue light when reading, but blue light is not a problem if you have very low light. So if you only use this screen with the lowest possible front light, for example, then you don't get any blue light problems, issues when reading digitally on this. Blue light is only a problem when you have very much front light or backlight. So for example, when reading on this iPhone in this light in this studio, I can see that it uses around 50% of the front light of the display, and that is not good because then it have a lot of blue light, and over 50% and up to 100% you get a lot of blue light when reading. But as I said before, everything is possible to change on an iPhone or an Android phone mostly. So if I go into the settings for the display, you can see that I can set something that's called night shift. So here I can use night shift by having it when the sun goes down, I will have blue light removing by this feature called night shift from Apple. And here I can set how warm it should be. As you see here, it removes the blue light the warmer it gets. But I usually have it like this because when this feature should be active for me, I mostly doesn't have so much light on the display, and as I said, blue light is not an issue with low light. Only when you have much light on the display, then it's an issue. And lastly, fingerprints is a terrible thing for eye strain. It's one of the worst thing I know. And once again, a matte screen protector on this doesn't add any fingerprints whatsoever. And if you get fingerprints on this matte screen protector, it's so easy to wipe off with a micro cloth or something, just a cloth, so you don't have any fingerprints whatsoever. So I think that's it for this video. Very long video, but I think this is important. Eye strain for reading digitally is not a fun thing, because you get headaches and migraines, and I know a lot of people are hurting from that. When it comes to reading on smartphones and tablets with LCD or OLED displays, it also is pulse width modulation, PWM, is an issue for some people. Some people doesn't have any issues whatsoever when it comes to pulse width modulation. I am one of them that doesn't have any problems with it, and I think it's a very tiny percent of the people reading digitally that have problems with pulse width modulation. So I think, I know there is an issue with that, yes, but very few people notice pulse width modulation. So for me, that is not a problem when reading on an LCD or an OLED display, and no problem whatsoever. So to me, this is the perfect setup for me. I will read a lot on my iPhone when I'm inside, and also on my iPad soon, because I will order the same matte screen protector and set it on my iPad. So when I have that on the iPad, on my iPhone, I will read mostly on those when I'm inside, indoor reading, if you call it, and have all my beautiful e-readers I have when I'm reading outside in direct sunlight and so on, because that's much better, because these devices only will be very hot and overheating and so on in direct sunlight. So it's not fun to read on them, because they get so hot, and after a while they turn off. Either this display turns off or the complete phone. So that's not fun to read in direct sunlight with a lot of heat. But these devices is much better for that. Some of the e-readers also turns off when overheating, but I can think this maybe will do that sometime. But the Kindle Basic has been good for it, and also my eBooks Palma is good for that, reading in direct sunlight. This works great with a matte screen protector, because it doesn't have any glare or reflections when reading outside, but mainly in the shadow maybe, or not in direct sunlight, if you know what I mean. You can read very good on this too outside. So that's why I will have this always with me wherever I go when reading. But this will be for more planning to read. When I have planned to read in a longer session, I will use my normal e-readers. Okay, bye.